So here we are as we get into our big stories, laying the foundation with that report that you just saw. It's actually one of our latest Hotline documentaries. So 90% of the local producers or processors of soya bean have actually gone out of business. It has led to the collapse of thousands of jobs, or should I say the loss of that number of jobs. It's also interesting as we commence the conversation to paint the picture that soya bean is crucial to our national life. Many of us may not know, but it is consumed by humans. We use it sometimes in food for babies and others. It is used in animal feed industrially. It is used for paints, among others, and even as biodiesel. That's how important soya bean is. Well, this morning, joining the conversation, we're going to engage some industry players on what the latest shortage means to us. Kwesi Nyamiche, a CEO of Vesta Oil Mills. He joins us via Zoom. A quick check with Kwesi Nyamiche. Mr. Nyamiche, a very good morning to you. Can you hear me? All right, so we'll get him shortly. But we also have in the studio Gideon Abuaji, who is with Dragon Farming Limited. Dragon Farming Limited. Thank you, Mr. Abuaji, for joining the conversation.
Thank you.
So let's start from right here. And let me just let our viewers know that we're also going to try to get interactive with some players from the powers that be. Let me just leave it at that. So they can also respond to some of what we're going to discuss here. But when it comes to soya bean, access to it's become topical now. So I'd like to premise the conversation from your entity, Dragon Farming Limited. How long have you been in the business, the soya bean business?
We've been in business for the last 22 years.
22 years?
Yes.
What exactly do you do with soya bean? I see you here with some products. Are these derivatives or something? I see some of the beans as well.
Yeah. So this is the raw soya bean, as you can see it.
Right.
Yeah, this is the raw soya bean.
Okay.
We take it through processes.
Right.
And then based on the technology that you are using, you either come out with this plus this.
So what is this that you're showing?
This is what we call soybean meal.
Soybean meal.
Solvent extracted soybean meal.
Right.
Right. This is the chemical processes.
Right.
And then when you use the mechanical system, then you end up with this, which is also called soybean meal.
So it's you can see that this is finer than that one.
Yes.
Right.
But this is mechanical. There's no chemical used. Okay. And then you get oil. This is the first stage of the soya oil that it's used in household for cooking and all that. This is the crude stage of it. Right. And then this go through further processing, and then you get your vegetable oil or any other derivatives.
Like the biodiesel that I spoke of.
Like the biodiesel.
Or high performance fuels. It all comes from this stage. So that's the initial stage.
Exactly. And also lecithin and also gels that are used in pharmaceutical industry.
So let me just hold this to the camera. This is what it looks like. I'm sure you'd like to get a feel. So this is the initial...
The first stage of the soy oil.
Right. Okay, so we have quite a number of these products, and these are the derivatives we see there as well. But let's talk about what is happening in the industry now. I want you to paint the picture for us, because I've heard so many things from different quarters.
Right.
So what is it now? Is it the fact that there is a shortage of soya bean? Or is it that it is there in large quantities, but you who need them for industrial purposes simply cannot afford them? Where do we stand?
The problem is in two folds. Currently, it is not available, and so we are not able to aggregate the volumes that we need to keep our production at optimum levels to make margins.
When you say it is not available, is it that it's off season? Is it that the farmers are hoarding them? What is it? Or simply that you cannot afford them?
What has happened is that at the beginning of the season, which starts from November, we had people coming in from other places, and especially Indians, going onto the market and mopping almost everything. What mostly happened in the conventional year after the harvesting season is that at the beginning of the harvesting, there is a lot of raw material. When we say raw material, we mean soybean, which is our primary product that we use for our production. There is enough on the market, And so you are able to mobilize enough for storage and also to keep your production going. You know, we deal with machines, and so you need to have raw materials to feed the machine regularly to make them efficient and also to be able to be profitable in terms of production. What has happened is that most of the volumes that should have been around to assist us to keep our production has all been mobbed up by foreigners.
So it's dwindling.
It's already exported.
All right. So tell me.
There's none in there for us to aggregate. The little that is there, it means that you have to go onto the market, aggregate for so many weeks, get the volumes that is you can use it for production before you can switch your machines on to produce.
So it's a Herculean process, first of all, getting access to the soybean, which is your raw material.
Yes.
This is also impacting your machines because they need to be in constant operation to be able to maximize their capacity or potential. And it also means that the production time, what you would have used to produce at a go, you have to wait maybe weeks now just to aggregate.
Exactly.
I'm just trying to.
Exactly.
Am I getting
or you
it right?
scale down your volumes in terms of your
Production.
capacity. So let's say if you have 100-ton capacity a day and you are not able to aggregate the volumes that you need to keep that entire capacity in production, then you have to scale back and use a lower capacity, which makes you completely unproductive, and also you make a lot of losses.
Tell me, before these challenges started, I don't know for how long you've been facing these challenges, you can tell me, but what was your capacity then and what is your capacity now? Or have you totally shut down? Break it down for me.
Okay, so when you take my case, we had about 85 metric tons a day processing capacity. Currently, we're doing less than 20 metric tons.
So 80 what, 9?
85 metric tons, and the metric ton is 1,000 kilos. So you just times it by 85. And then maybe if you want to understand.
So that was 85,000 kilos. So
85,000 kilos.
And now you're producing what?
Now we are producing just about 20,000 kilos a day. And we have to scale back with workers of about 120 to less than 40 now. And
so 80 jobs have been lost
already.
Just from Dragon Farms Limited?
Yes.
Wow. I mean, what does this really mean for business?
What it means is that, one, we are piling up debt, and two, we've been made weaker as industrialists and as entrepreneurs, because if you invest over $4-5 million to establish a plant for soya processing, and they sit idle for 5, 6, 7 months, and even at the times that you are using the machines, you are scaling down on your capacity. All that it means is that you either piling up debt or you're not going to make any headway in terms of what your vision is.
So that's about how much you invested in this? 4, 5, 6 million?
Yes.
I mean, you together with maybe your partners. This is what you pumped into the venture.
Exactly.
Wow. And you say, how long have you been in operation again?
22 years.
22 years.
Yes.
And of course, every year you have to, work on your machines.
Yes.
There'll be all of that done. And then all of a sudden, you can't even
get the raw materials.
Get the raw material.
And like we keep on saying, the total installed capacity in this country is sufficient to process all the soya beans we produce in Ghana.
For those who need them for poultry feed and other feed, for human consumption,
exactly,
for maybe industrial purposes. You're saying that in your industry, those of you in there have the capacity to do that.
Exactly. What we produce locally is about 170,000. And we have installed capacity of over 200,000.
Wow.
And Ghana is importing over 350,000 metric tons of the finished product onto the Ghanaian market.
You're telling me we're importing about 350,000 tons.
Exactly.
So what this means is that if we boosted our local capacity, which you guys are getting up to meet, we could stop basically at some point importing this and just getting off local production, right?
Okay.
That's what you're saying.
Let me give you the real figure.
Because there's a disparity in there. That's what I'm trying to understand.
350,000 metric tons is about $160 million.
Wow.
What we can process locally is about $120 million.
So it leaves a gap of about
just
40
million, which then we can decide to import to cover up. But what is happening now is that capacity of about $120 million of machinery that we have sitting, it's virtually doing nothing, and rather we are importing the finished products. And what we are doing is to allow foreigners to come onto our market. They don't go onto the commodity exchange to go and get the products there. They go into the farm gate, and so all the guys within the value chain, the aggregators, almost everybody is cut out. And that is how serious this issue is. You know, and if this thing is not properly addressed, what is going to happen is that very soon, egg prices will even escalate more than what the poultry farmers
They've increased recently.
have already told us.
Yeah, they've increased recently.
Do you get
They've
it?
increased.
Because the world market in terms of commodity is having its own challenges. And so most of the countries have stopped the exportation of commodities from their countries. Like,
of course, makes sense. They're keeping them for their own population.
Burkina Faso, Togo, you cannot take anything out. And so it baffles us as we are just allowing people to come in. They don't go through any system. They just go to the marketplace and buy product and export it.
Okay.
They pay nothing.
So tell me, even before we get into the full processes
Right.
of what has usually happened and,
Right.
and what has changed currently, in other jurisdictions, and I'm sure you engage, farmers from, or at least those in your industry in other countries, especially West Africa. What applies, say, in Nigeria, in Burkina Faso, and the rest, that is different from what we're doing here?
They have agencies that people have to go through. You don't just go onto...
That is the foreigners.
The foreigners.
There's an agency, you have
That
to
you
go
have
through
to
the
go
agency.
through. If you go outside, you cannot trade directly with the farmer. You have to go through his broker, who then determines how much the farmer wants to sell and how much you are prepared to pay. And then at the point you agree on something, and then you have a sale. But it mostly has to go through the commodity exchange.
Right.
But in West Africa, yes, you have to. There are associations and agencies like Nigeria and other places that you have to go through before you are able to even buy products. But what happens here in Ghana is that people go onto our market, they buy soya, they buy maize, and they take them away at any price.
There are no real processes. There are no intermediary processes to regulate, because that's what the feeling I'm getting then. There are no intermediary processes to regulate pricing.
Yes. And, because of this situation, we had worked very hard to get the Ghana Commodity Exchange established.
Right.
So that it plays that intermediary role to make sure that prices are controlled in a way that it benefits the buyer and also the seller. Unfortunately, I don't know what
happened to it, the Ghana Commodity Exchange. What happened?
Well, I don't know.
You don't know?
Yes, I don't.
I'm curious. So we had these mechanisms working in the past, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
How did it operate in the past? Tell me how it was working.
Okay, on two fronts. Before the commodity exchange came in, what we do is that you have different levels of aggregators. You have the women who go into the villages to mobilize Olonka, 1 Olonka, 2 Olonka, and get them into bags, 5, 6 bags. And then there is another intermediary who takes it over and then aggregated maybe 5, 10, 15 to maybe 100. He then gives it over to a bigger aggregator who had maybe 10 or 20 of these small aggregators. Then he is able to load maybe a truck, 2 trucks, 3 trucks, depending on the demands that they have. Then they supply to the processing factories. Those who also have the capacity to store, then they store those products and release it onto the market gradually. So you can see in the years past, prices do escalate, but it is done in a way that everybody within the system is comfortable.
Right.
All right. But what is happening now is that even at the peak of harvest, where there is sufficient products on the market,
where pricing should be low.
Prices should be low. Prices are high.
So before I move on to Mr. Nyameche, who has also joined the conversation, averagely, how much were you paying before for maybe a kilo of soya bean?
Right.
And how much are you paying now, even if you get access to it?
At the beginning of the season, which was just on November, we were paying 300, 330, maximum 350. Now we are paying
for what? For a bag?
100 kilo bag.
100 kilo bag.
100 kilo bag was about 300, 330, maximum 350. In less than 4 months, we're paying almost 600 cedis. That is how serious.
That's almost a 100% increase.
And which industry operates in this kind of extremely unregulated system?
Don't you think it has to do with, the prevailing circumstances around the world? We're dealing with a pandemic. We're also dealing with the Russia-Ukraine situation. Don't you feel maybe that is also part of the problem?
Yes, but we have spent almost 800 million Ghana cedis in supporting planting for food and jobs. Our taxes, you and I, our taxes, is what did that job. And so if there are crises across the world on commodity front, and we have our own domestic capacity, do we look for people outside and support them by allowing them to take what our own taxes had supported to produce? Or we look inward and solve our own problems?
So just finally for now, has planting for food and jobs failed in specific respect of maybe soya bean production? I don't know whether you know about maize, but for soya bean production, has it failed in this respect?
It hasn't, because production has increased. From the time the policy came into effect, production has increased. But what has happened is that benefit is not trickling down to the industries within that value chain that needs to take advantage of the increases that we've had in terms of production.
Okay. So we're just fueling other economies and leaving our own. But let me also bring in Kwesi Nyamiche, who is CEO of Vesta Oil. He joins us via Zoom. Mr. Nyamiche, a very good morning to you, sir. Mr. Nyamiche, if you can hear me, you might have to unmute. That is, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. Good morning, sir, and thanks for having me.
Great. It's a pleasure having you. Vesta Oil Mills, how long have you been in the system? How long have you been in production?
Since 2006.
I missed that. If you could repeat it again. The network is a bit unstable. All right, so we'll try to work on the connection with Mr. Nyamiche. Mr. Nyamiche, if you can hear me now, just give me an answer concerning how long you've been in operation, Vesta Oil Mills.
Vesta has been around since 2004.
2004.
And we started doing soya from 2006. So we've been around since 2004.
Okay. And tell me, what is different now from what we've seen over the years when it comes to access to soya bean, the raw material for your production? Maybe before you get into that, what exactly do you produce? So is it just the oil, soya oil, or do you have other derivatives from soya that you process?
I do, as my colleague at the studio has said. We basically extract oil from the soybeans. I have a refinery, so I add value to even the crude soya oil that we process and get it into edibles and sell it in the market. And then the soy meal we sell to poultry and livestock for them to use in making poultry feed and fish feed.
All right, so
that's what we do. Soya basically had...
Go ahead, Mr. Nyamiche, I'm listening. Okay. Mr. Nyamiche, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back.
Yes, just go ahead. You were making a point. Go ahead.
No, I said soya basically has two products. So we get a meal and the oil. And I go further to add value to my oil. I have a 20-ton a day refinery. So I refine my oil and I sell the oil as edibles in the market.
Okay. So this is what you do. You even go ahead to add some value to it. How much would you quantify your investment into this business? Can you give us a fair idea how much you've pumped into this business?
Roughly, I've invested about 4.5 million in both in equity and debt.
Right. So it feeds into what Mr. Abaji was telling me earlier, between some 4 to 6 million. Vesta Oil Mills, are you still working? Are you still in operation?
As I speak to you right now, my workers are at home. We are down. We don't have enough, and my plant is so big that if you have even 1,000 bags and you start a plant, it's just one day and everything. 1,000 bags is about 100 tons. It's just one day and everything is finished. So we can't, and the chemical process start and stop. So we just have to wait till we have enough then before we can start. So for the past 2 weeks now, my workers are at home.
Mr. Nyamiche, just hold for me because we have the Deputy Minister for Agriculture, Yao Ado-Frimpong, joining us, and he will give us some answers to questions that you have. Mr. Frimpong, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining the conversation, sir.
Hi, good morning.
It's a pleasure having you. I'm sure it has come to your notice that, yes, maize, but soya bean as well, supposedly is in short supply, which is interesting because we've been told time and again that our production of raw materials like soya bean is on the increase. Do tell me, what is the reality? Are we producing more soya bean? And if we are, why are industry players in Ghana unable to access it?
Yeah, thank you so much. And my greetings to listeners. I don't know how to answer this question because as far as our records are concerned, we have increased production from 20 of soya bean from 2017 up to date, up to 2021.
Mr. Frimpong, if you could just speak up for me, I'm losing you intermittently.
Okay. I think I'm driving, but if you can hear me now.
Did you just say you were driving?
Yes. I'm on my way to a program.
Okay, so I would appreciate it for your own safety, if you could just park and interact with us.
I'm using earpiece, so I'm safe. I mean, if you can hear me, I'm using earpiece, so I'm safe.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. So do go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you, Mr. Frimpong. Do go ahead. Go ahead with the point you were making.
Yes, I was saying that in the past 5 years, we have been increasing production of soya bean steadily. From a certain level, we picked it in 2017 to 2021. But I must also admit that we have not gotten to the level that we will say we are self-sufficient in soya bean production.
Okay.
Therefore, naturally, yes, I listened to a little bit of what my brother on the other line was saying.
Right.
And it is true that there is shortfall. And it is affecting the processes, especially. And it's all there are factors that account for that. And I will not stand anywhere to challenge anybody who says that the shortage. Because he is a processor, and just like others, there are other processors who are also facing similar problem.
Okay.
There is an ally that has the expectation of soya bean from this country. Until you get some clearance from the ministry, the permit from the ministry before you can go ahead to export.
Okay.
Several of such exporters who got their soya bean directly from the farmers wanted permit to export certain quantities. But
So just to get you clearly, because the line is a bit tricky, there is an ally when it comes to exporting soya bean, and you're saying that some local producers wanted to get access to certification so they can export. Is that what you're saying?
some exporters, yes, that they are certified exporters.
Okay.
That when it is justified that you need to meet certain contractual obligations from people outside, from your partners outside, the ministry can, in such circumstances, give you a permit to export. And there are a few exporters here who have been allowed to export not more than 5,000 metric tons.
Okay, and these are Ghanaians. These are Ghanaians.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
I don't have that sheet of paper on me right now, but I know of some of such companies that applied for the permit to export. Some wanted to export 10,000, but the minister did not agree to that, so they were allowed to
Okay,
export
so it is clear that we have the sufficiency from what you're saying, and you were mentioning data from 2017. So if we do, how is it that local producers or local processors of soya bean cannot have access to the product? They have made mention of the fact that foreigners, especially Indians, come into the country and they don't go through the Ghana Commodities Exchange. Somehow they are granted access, so they come in, they go directly to the farms, negotiate with the farmers and buy from them. Are you aware of this situation?
No, I'm not aware of that, because every company that the ministry deals with is known by the ministry, so they cannot be strangers. You understand? Every ministry, every exporter that deals in soya bean.
You're saying that all of these people that are being referenced by, and this is it's not just Mr. Abuaje or Mr. Nyameche. The interactions we've had earlier with farmers, all of them are saying, or not farmers, but the processors are saying that they are being crowded out because foreigners, especially Indians, are coming into the country, going to the farmers to buy from them. You know, that will hike the prices up. So the local processors can't afford the product.
You know why we all need to be dialoguing over increased production. You see, because me, I'm speaking with you. I'm a farmer, and if I buy my input from the open market and I get my produce and I get a buyer, the government can say, look, you can sell up to this limit. But the government cannot say that you will not allow me to sell to people at all, because I need good price so that I'll be encouraged and motivated to go onto the land in the coming years.
But you also admit, Mr. Frimpong, that without the proper regulation, our local processors will not be able to compete. Some of those coming in from other countries may have economies of scale to their advantage, or they may feel that because they are coming to buy and sell to the foreign market, they will get more no matter what. So they can afford to buy it. If local farmers are buying it for 6 cedis, they can afford to pay 10 cedis and still make their profit.
I agree with you. And I do sympathize with local businesses. We need to build their capacities so they can also compete adequately. But in the meantime, you see, if we are talking about a demand and supply situation, for now, we are talking about demand and supply situation. The only thing the government can do is to use that LI and strictly in this time that we did not get the quantities that we should be getting, because as I indicated earlier, we are not there yet that we should have surplus. You see, and last year, for example, the weather was not too friendly, and the inputs and fertilizers also delayed. So it affected the production levels. And that is what I'm talking about. But that does not mean that the farmer who struggled to produce must also be shortchanged. But we need to balance the situation so that our processors will have the produce to also process for our poultry farmers. It is a situation that you don't need to even argue, but you need to just dialogue over it and find solutions. For me,
So Mr. Frimpong, I'm just curious. How do we balance the situation? How do we perform that balancing act? The soya bean is integral in poultry feed. Egg products and poultry products prices are going up on the back of the lack of access to soya bean. You also look at the farmers, and they are saying that they have capacity to produce to almost satisfy our local need. In fact, Mr. Abuaje, who's here in the studio, said that they are producing, is it 120,000 tons, did you say?
Yeah, we are producing about 85 tons a day.
Okay, so I mean, generally,
you
mentioned
our association can produce about 200,000 metric tons.
Per year?
Per year.
And you said that the general, what we need as a country is what?
It's about 350,000 metric tons.
Okay, so more than half of it can be produced by our people.
21,000. As of 2021, we did, as of September that we collected the data, we did 221,000 metric tons.
Right.
You understand? So still there will be that shortfall. And therefore, all we need to do is to encourage a lot more of farmers to produce more. You know, so we cannot, you see, until we all are determined to produce, to encourage our farmers to produce more, such kind of situation will occur every year. And gradually, as I indicated, we have been increasing production from a low level to that the 61,000 I spoke about earlier. So let us all together with the farmers, the aggregators, the processors, we should all come together to find lasting solutions, because soybean does so well in the Savannah belt, and we have the land. So we just have to encourage ourselves, encourage our farmers, and my brother out there on the line. You don't have to go into some of these the production of the soya. And I think this problem is not something that we can solve together. I mean, with time, we can solve these problems.
With time, in the interim, we're told about 90% of these processing plants, are folding up. In fact, Mr. Abuaje here in the studio tells me that his workers have been slashed. How many were they again?
Yeah, they were about 120. Now we're doing about 40.
Okay, so in just his plant, Dragon Farming Limited, 120 workers. Now there are only 40. Jobs are being lost. Money is being lost per day. And just consider this. He says as of November, they were buying at the highest 100 kilo bag of soya bean for 350 at the highest. Now they're paying 600 cedis for it. Is that sustainable?
In fact, with the price in right now, if you go to the international market, they can't even get it at that price. Soya bean is in such high demand. And when we don't have the quantities that will bring the price down, naturally, the price will go up. It's such high demand everywhere in the world. So, as I indicated, I sympathize with our processing. But that's not to say that we should throw our arms in the air in despair. We should encourage ourselves. I mean, we are going to the planting season. We should encourage ourselves to go and do more. The ministry is taking delivery of some agri mechanization equipment, and hopefully, we are going to expand a lot of such production levels in the Savannah areas, and maybe next year we will be singing a different song.
Mr. Frimpong, so right before you take leave of us, just to clarify, so your suggestion is that the solution is for them to encourage themselves. In the meantime, a lot of them are not producing. The machines they use must be in constant operation to get full capacity. They are losing a lot of money. This is equipment worth, millions of dollars, 4 million, 5 million, 6 million. You're saying that in the interim, they should encourage themselves. What measures will be put in place so that maybe by end of year, we can see some real changes for those in that industry?
Yes, I just mentioned about the ministry taking delivery of agri-mechanization equipment right now for distribution to the areas that we need them. And we are going to distribute this to the areas. And therefore, I am of high hope that production is going to go up. And once production goes up in the regions that produce lots of soya beans, maybe just as I said, we'll be sending the difference of come next year around the same time. We have to increase production. There's no other way. You have to increase production because on the international market, the price is so high. So we need to look inward and produce more here. That's it.
Okay. Mr. Frimpong, we're really grateful that regardless of everything, you've made the time to speak to us this morning. Thank you so much, sir.
I'm grateful. Thank you so much.
All right. And that is Yawado Frimpong, Deputy Minister for Agriculture. Mr. Nyamiche, you've heard what Mr. Frimpong has said. He says you should encourage yourselves and that they'll put in place the right mechanism so that by this time next year, you will not be where you are now. Is that comfort enough for you? If Mr. Nyamiche can hear me. If not, I'll come into the studio. Mr. Nyamiche, so I'm just asking, you've heard the Deputy Minister for Agri. He says, encourage yourselves, first of all, and that government will put in place the right mechanisms to shore up soya bean production. And that come this time next year, we will not find ourselves where we are. Is that comfort enough for you?
I wouldn't say it's enough. I listened to him carefully. I'm part of the committee.
All right, let me come into the studio. I'm putting that same question to you. Have you taken, a lot of comfort from what the Deputy Minister just said?
No.
Why not?
Because we've been warning them for the last 3 years about this.
So it's a trend?
Yes. And it's sad that we are asked to comfort ourselves. So we'll comfort ourselves.
He says you should encourage yourselves.
We should encourage ourselves.
Yes.
So we'll encourage ourselves.
And we should increase production.
Yeah. We need to increase production. But if the Indian government spends $120 million in supporting a program for soybean production to increase in their country, if they will allow Ghanaians or Ghanaian aggregators to go there and pick the products, it's a bit pathetic sometimes when some of these things are heard from our leaders. It's very sad.
So you're not taking any encouragement from this?
No, I'm not. Because we've been warning them. For the last 3 years, we've been warning them that this is the problem we're likely to have. And look at what is happening in the whole industry. Now, we buy next almost a CD per egg, and it's likely to go up. And we've been asked to encourage ourselves. So we encourage ourselves.
How will you encourage yourself? You seem to be speaking sarcastically. So how will you encourage yourself?
I'll go to my factory, look at my machines lying idle. I'm very emotional. You see, we can't continue like this in this country. All right? We can't continue like this in this country. When people spend money to put up systems to help in creating employment, and then we have people just telling us that we should encourage ourselves just because something that somebody could have done refused to do it and is causing all these problems to it. It looks like we always look at satisfying foreigners against Ghanaians, and that is wrong. That is completely wrong, and it has to stop. We won't spend our taxes in supporting a flagship program, and then when the benefit comes, we allow foreigners to take it. And then we are being asked to encourage ourselves.
The Deputy Minister does not agree. He says these foreigners are not failing to go through the GCE, the Ghana Commodities Exchange. He doesn't agree that they're going directly to the farmers. You heard him.
I am telling you, my colleague on the phone was telling you, the documentary you showed, the lady was telling you. So if the Deputy Minister is saying all of us are lying, that is fine. I'm not here to do personal attacks. I'm just here to help support the poultry industry in Ghana, to support the soya processing in Ghana. That is my sole obligation.
My final bit to you, and maybe if Mr. Nyamicha is on, I'll just wrap with him as well. So you're still in business. Have you folded up? Are you say you have about 40 on the ground. Are you still processing?
In the next 30 days, I'll be going out.
In the next 30 days?
Yes.
You'll be folding up?
Yep.
Because of a lack of raw material?
Yep.
Mr. Abaji, thank you so much for joining the conversation. Just stay with me. Do we have Mr. Nyamicha still with us? Mr. Nyamicha, so you heard very quickly, it appears we've lost Mr. Nyamicha again. Well, those who joined us on this conversation, and it is quite a situation. Gideon Abuaji is with Dragon Farming Limited. We also had Mr. Kwesi Nyamicha, CEO, Vesta Oil Mill, and the Deputy Agric Minister, Yao Ado Frimpong. I'm sure we'll come back to this at some other point. But coming up next, we have the CPP. They're back in the studio. It's about another interdicted executive, Nanaya Jantwa. She will join us later. But right after the break, when we return, it's all about the NSMQ, National Science and Math Quiz. Do stay with us.